Kim, we're back again to talk
Yes.
about a horror classic this time that you and I both loved and couldn't wait to share our thoughts on. And my
Oh
dog's in
my
my
God.
lap, so she's, all over the place. So
Yeah.
my question, so we're talking about Jeepers Creepers Reborn. And just really quickly, my Jeepers Creepers background is that I've seen for sure the first two movies. I don't know if I saw the third one or not.
Same. I saw the first two. I don't think I saw the third.
Yeah. So my question for you, Kim, is this: is this one of the worst movies ever made, or the worst movie ever made?
Okay, so now to be fair, I've seen some pretty bad B horror films that
As
I
have
pulled
I.
off the shelf at Blockbuster, oddly enough. Like
Oh, nice.
I remember some movies I found back in the day that I'm like, wow, this was shot in someone's backyard. So it is not of the caliber that I would, want to see in a horror film. But like, I don't think I thought it was as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, and so I've talked about this before. I've made a bad horror movie. Like I've done it. Like so I can appreciate when that happens and when people are trying to navigate low budget situations and all of that kind of thing. I think my issue was just generally the script itself and
Yeah.
sort of the approach for the movie. So I'm going to
Yes.
attempt to summarize what happens in this movie, and I might need you to jump in because there
Good
were
luck.
some things that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it could be, and we were just talking about this before we started recording, I could just be misremembering. It also could have been the fact that I kept dozing off while I was watching it, which is kind of an indictment maybe of the movie itself
Yeah, I
a
was
little
definitely
bit.
distracted by a lot of stuff while I was watching.
Yeah, like and I'll say this, I rarely just walk out of movies. Like I've never walked out of a movie in a theater. There have been plenty of times for sure where like I've started something on Netflix and decided, you know what, like 10 minutes in, I'm not feeling this. Like this is terrible. I
Yeah.
can't watch this. I
Yeah.
was like in the first 15 minutes, I was close. I was almost like, you know what, like I could be doing a lot of other things right now besides watching this movie.
Yes, I agree. There was also that same idea. And then it was very much like, what else am I going to do? My kid's going to be awake in an hour. I should just finish this movie.
I think
So,
for me, it was going to be folding laundry. Instead, this was the more desirable of the two options that were
which
out there.
speaks volumes to your hatred of laundry.
Dude, Sudshare needs to sponsor me because I've done this twice now. I've done this twice. I've had them come get my laundry and bring it back, and it's awesome. And Erica thinks I'm crazy, and I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm gonna pay for it because I just don't like doing laundry. Like it's terrible.
That's okay.
If there were a litter box scooping service, that would be the next thing.
I
that
should
I'm
have
on board
Matt
with.
start one. Matt cleans our litter box. I should be like, you should start your own litter scooping business. Chris will be your
What
first client.
what would you call it?
I don't know. Okay, I didn't get that far in the development.
Oh, Erica's telling me to close the door. I must be really loud. Hang on one second. I'm going to do that. Maybe it's you, Kim, but it can't be because I've got earphones on. And as soon as I get settled, Lucy's gonna want to go out. As soon as I
Oh,
get
she's looking at the
settled.
door now. She's like,
Oh yeah,
"Ooh."
she's looking. She's like, what,
Oh,
what?
my cat
Yeah.
just came in. So
Oh, nice. Okay, so the plot of this quote unquote film, I'm being really harsh. The plot of this movie.
God.
Okay, so here's my thing, right? Like, I really enjoy like sci-fi channel type of movies.
Yes.
So like crazy Octoshark, whatever, that kind of stuff. Like I'm fine with that. And this definitely has that aesthetic, right? It's got kind of that low budget look to it. I don't know what type of camera they use for these kinds of movies, but it just has that feel. Like it doesn't feel like a truly cinematic thing.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that as long as it's fun in the process and entertaining.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that was my bigger issue here was that I just wasn't really entertained
They
mostly.
took themselves too seriously.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, so it begins, and I'm going to use some of the terminology that you use because I think it's pretty accurate. It begins with kind of a meta sort of thing, right? Like it's kind of like
Which
an unsolved
you don't know
mysteries.
at first.
Yeah, you don't
you're
know
like,
it at first.
what? Are we doing
At
a
first,
shot
it
for
seems
shot remake?
right. So at first, it seems like it's just another Jeepers Creepers movie where this older couple is driving down the road, and it's in the '60s, I guess, is what they're kind of aiming for with it, and it's got the mom from E.T., Dee Wallace, in it, which
Yes.
I don't.
What?
That's I don't know. That just came totally out of left field, and she's not in the movie any more than what you see at the start of the film, right?
Nope.
So they're driving down the road, and of course, they run into the creeper who's driving well, it's not actually his usual car. He's driving like a big truck, at least at the beginning of the movie, in this meta sequence
Yes.
thing.
They had to rebuild the truck for this movie because it was too expensive to transport from the US.
And weirdly, was that a trivia point that you had?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So And weirdly, you do get a couple of glimpses of the quote unquote creeper at the beginning, but you can tell it's just a dude. Like it's just a guy, like
Yeah,
a blonde
yeah,
guy or something. And so he terrorizes this older couple, and they go back to his house after seeing what they think is this person dumping a body down a chute, which is a Jeeper Creeper thing, right?
yeah,
Kind of a staple of the franchise or whatever, or the lore. But then it kind of pulls out, and you see that somebody's watching a video on their cell phone. And again, it's like an unsolved mysteries kind of deal where
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, this is an urban legend. It's not real. But this guy who's watching it is really into it and thinks that it's real. Like he's going with his girlfriend to Louisiana, I guess it is,
Yes,
to a
yes,
horror festival to
yes,
learn, or I guess to potentially mingle with other horror people, but learn more about the creeper in the process, maybe,
yes,
or something, I
yes.
guess.
And like the
So,
whole premise is none of these movies like they were all just like they were not real. It really reminded me of what Halloween did in the reboot by basically being like, "Oh, those were just movies. Those were not real. That's not part of our world." They like
right.
made it very clear that the movies we've seen are not prequels or sequels or any quels to this.
I
They're
think you made
just
a new word. I love it.
I did. There's no quels. They're
Right.
just they're just movies based on this legend, and now we are in the real world where this legend actually exists.
And with Halloween, it was so Halloween 2018 was a sequel to Halloween 1979, right? Like it was a sequel to that movie, but that was it. Like all the other ones didn't
Yeah,
happen, I
yeah,
think.
which I yes. So it's like
Right.
by saying they're like, but they make it very clear to add that into the dialogue that like we are not acknowledging any story that exists beyond what we've agreed to acknowledge.
And this character, I can't remember his name. Hold on, I've got the IMDb pulled up.
Chase,
I can remember what is it?
Chase,
Chase. Yeah, I got it. Not Chase, just Chase.
just Chase, not Chase.
he
Chase.
say he says something like, "Oh, there were 3 films made." So they acknowledge that there
Yes,
were films in
yes,
this universe in which they inhabit. So
right.
anyway, he's going with his girlfriend, and she seems kind of hesitant about the whole thing. And eventually, they pull over because she's not feeling well. And so this is where I got a little bit confused. So she goes and she pukes in the woods, and I think it was at this point that we see one of the creeper's weapons like embedded in a tree or something
Yeah,
like that. But
yes.
then she gets a phone call from a guy driving a Corvette who's like also
Yeah.
part. So who I don't get it. Was this like her boyfriend? Like was she cheating on this
No,
guy? Like what is going
no.
on?
It was her friend Sam.
Okay.
The end. That's it. And that's not my biggest grievance with the movie, but probably one of them is like, yeah, there's just this guy and he's also going to the horror fest, but that's it. That's all you know. Like that is it. That's the scope of their relationship.
Right.
Because
Because it
then within 5 minutes, he's dead.
Yeah, it's so and I'm like, were there scenes that were deleted that were somehow gonna come back into play later and they decided to rewrite it and then
It
kill
kind of seems
the
like it.
character?
I feel
Yeah,
like it happened so quickly and choppily. It did. Like I felt. I'm like, wait. All of a sudden, the creeper's crawling out of this barn, and I'm like, did I miss something here? But no, I did not.
yeah. So and I kept thinking, right. So I'm glad you said that because I kept waiting later in the movie for this person to reemerge and be like, oh, this is really her boyfriend, or like this is just one of her friends, or some kind of extended explanation. So let me just how did you figure that out? Was it just you paid more attention than me, which could be the case?
Yes, because the creeper killed him.
Right. I knew the creeper killed him, but like I guess just her relation to him. Like
Oh no,
what the
I
relationship.
didn't know. I didn't think that. I don't know. I guess maybe it was the like optimist in me that just assumed that it was some rando friend.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I didn't think there was anything about the way his character was introduced that was like, ooh, something else is going on here. And maybe they wanted that because we do find out very soon this girl is pregnant.
Right.
So maybe they wanted us to be like, who's the daddy? But I never cared enough to wonder.
It's an
So
episode of Maury or
yeah,
something. I
right,
don't know what's going
right.
on. So yeah, so
Creeper
eventually
steals the parental rights.
it and I'm fast forwarding a little bit here, but they end up at sort of a voodoo store sort of
Yes.
situation, and there's
Mhm.
a woman who's a little bit mysterious running the
Yeah.
shop who touches this character's hand. I cannot remember these characters' names. What is the
Lane.
Lane?
I
That's right.
just
You
looked
got
at the
this down.
site. That's why. It's not like I remember
Yeah,
because it like stayed with me. I
because they were
just
memorable characters.
looked at it. Yes.
Um, yeah, so she touches Lane's hand and has like a vision of her being pregnant. And I guess at that moment, we get some glimpses of sort of malintent, some maliciousness in terms of
Yes.
like her background and what she's trying to do. But is there something I'm missing with that shop? I mean, I think that was just kind of what it's setting us up for a little bit later in the movie.
Yeah, so it's definitely, and then I think it's that moment where they leave and then she picks up like a phone and calls somebody and is like, we've got one. He's going to be happy or whatever. So you immediately know that she is part of a group that is going to want to harm this person. There's like a very human level of the creeper
There's like
story.
there's like an occult sort of
Yes.
thing happening.
Yes, there
And
is an occult.
so there, it did not remind me of Child's Play, but just the whole, like, he's got to be, I guess, reborn into another human is eventually kind of what they're building toward, I guess. Like, I don't know
Well, his
exactly.
whole thing is he's always had to eat the body
Right.
parts, right?
To
And that's why he
regenerate and
tells that first friend, Sam, to start that process. And then he's got his body on reserve. You see it later hanging from the chandelier. And when he needs his arm, he just takes one from Sam. And
Right.
so I guess I interpreted it as, I don't know if he like needs to eat this baby to like be a human, like, but I assumed there was something appeasing or appetizing about about this, that like this would somehow bring him to a new level or a more power to eat a person that has a person inside them. I don't know.
And nothing about that is explained, and as a viewer,
No.
you're just trying to kind of piece it together a little bit. Even why this cult is doing this, I guess, to keep him happy, so he doesn't kill them, or
You don't
because they
know.
worship
You don't
him. Like,
know.
I don't know. I kind of
Which
thought it was like a
I'm all
demigod sort of
about
thing. But
that. There's a lot of really good stuff out there about people who are like, sorry, we got to sacrifice you to save us. But it seemed like they worshipped him. They had like an altar, and they had like, so there definitely seemed to be something very like dark and sinister about it beyond like trying to save themselves.
that was definitely the vibe I got. Kind of the whole,
Yeah.
we're going to worship you. There's a shrine in this old cemetery building sort of thing. But anyway, that's a little bit later in the movie. So they get to this bed and breakfast they're staying at. They get settled in, and this guy, I guess they're trying to develop his character as like he's really into pop culture and sort of
Yeah. He's
horror
the big
goth,
horror fan, and she is
right,
not.
kind of stuff. And he's like, "Oh, I want you to cosplay for me." And he's got like a Harley Quinn sort of thing, and all this. And it's just almost like a quick montage of like, "Oh, I'm going to dress like Edward Scissorhands. I'm going to dress
And
like
like,
this."
quite honestly, I don't know if you know this, it takes a lot of time to put on all that makeup and the hair,
Right.
everything she did. I'm like, there's no way that you did 3 to 4 costumes in that 20-minute time period that we're supposed to believe. So that was probably for me the most unbelievable part of the movie.
I'm glad to have that context, Kim. That's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really took me out of it.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess they're just trying to develop the relationship. But the whole time up until this point, I kept thinking like she doesn't seem like she likes him very much, or she seems kind of like, I don't know, like she just seems sort of not into this trip, maybe, or something. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
what was
I mean,
going on.
she's not a horror fan, so she doesn't, which is what you have to have, right? The foil. There's the person who really wants to be there and the person who doesn't. So, but but then there's the other layer of, her being pregnant and he wants to propose.
Right.
Like,
He's got
this
the
could all
ring.
go very well for them or very poorly, and we're all going to
Yes.
find that out in the next 12 hours is basically the premise.
Right. And so, do you remember the name of the festival? Was it just Horror Fest? Like, I honestly don't remember.
I don't remember either. I thought there was a specific name, but I don't remember.
So, okay, so they get settled into their bed and breakfast, and I guess it's that same night they go out, or maybe it's the next day. I can't remember. I think
It's the same night. Yeah.
same night. Yeah. So they go to this festival, and it's just like a carnival sort of thing where you can do, I guess, axe throwing, ninja star throwing. You can take one of the creepers' weapons and throw it.
Combination of like horror, because there was pop culture horror, and then there was like actual real life horror, like real life serial killers and also serial killers from movies. And so I'm like, I don't understand what world are we in? It was
I didn't expect Michael Myers to make an appearance in this, but you do see his mask and someone dressed as him briefly
there's
in the
a lot
movie.
of different clowns, but then there's like Ed Gein, and it's like, okay, all right, sure.
What I should know this. What is Ed Gein? What is that from? I should know what that is.
Well, technically, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure that's what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on.
Okay.
But it wasn't Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like almost like the real guy. So
yeah.
I don't know.
So, okay, so they're at this, and of course, the person from the voodoo shop is there and rigs
Yeah.
this contest so that they win this contest to be on like a reality show sort of thing,
Yeah, some
or
like
like a
internet
web show.
show, do an escape room, which I hate
That's
escape
what it
rooms.
was. And I've never done one. So many people are like, "Oh, you totally got to try one," but I just feel like I would be
I'm
really
sorry. I live
impatient.
in a
And
constant state of anxiety already. I don't need you to lock me in a room with people I'm
me
probably not
too.
gonna like to be like, yeah, let's try to work together to figure this out. I mean, it might be a
Yeah.
great form of couples therapy, but I'm not interested in finding out.
But and the whole thing is okay, so they rig it so that they win the contest so that they can get access to Lane. Is it Lane?
Yes, yes.
Lane and
They
the
just
baby.
want a baby.
They just want a baby. That's all they want. They want a baby. So they get in a van with this super creepy dude who is also coaching them about throwing ninja stars, and they're trying to maybe use it as kind of a diversion for the audience, as if like, oh, this guy, there's something really malevolent and
Right.
bad about
Yeah.
this
I
redneck
mean,
guy. Like,
in defense of the movie, that was probably a kind of a smarter strategy because ultimately he's not. Like he ends up being kind of on their side.
right, yeah, and so they eventually get to the location, and it's a cemetery, I think, if I'm
The
remembering
cemetery
correctly.
leading up to the house, some historical creepy
Yeah,
house.
it was almost yeah. So it had to have been a house. Like thinking back on how it was structured, it couldn't have been like a crypt or something. I mean, it
No, yeah, it's like it was almost like a plantation house with a cemetery in front of it. And so
right.
you had to. Did you ever see the movie Stay Alive?
I have not seen Stay
It
Alive.
had like
Should I watch
Frankie
that? Is it worth watching?
Yeah, you would, yes, you would enjoy it. It had like Frankie
Okay.
Muniz and a couple other people that were popular in like the early 2000s, but it's about a video game, a
Okay. I'm
horror
looking it up
video
now.
game that comes to life.
Okay.
And the imagery is so similar to what we see in Jeepers Creepers Reborn, like the house that they have to go to in the video game, like all of that. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in that video game in the movie Stay Alive. So, but
I'm
it's
looking at
just,
I'm looking at that now. I'm looking at some of the people in it. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I might have to watch that. Actually, it looks like something I would like. Okay. Anyway, so
yeah.
thank you. See, this is the thing. Kim and I, when we start talking about horror movies, we always give each other recommendations. Which Kim recently, this is totally a tangent, watched Total Recall for the first time, the Schwarzenegger classic, and enjoyed it. It's like it's in my top 10 movies. Like I
I'm
just
very
love that
glad that I
movie.
watched that. I feel like my life was missing something before then, and now I'm a little more complete as a person. So
Here we are 2 weeks later, and it's I'll have to
it's
splice in an
changed
image of this.
me.
It's totally. And I don't know if you probably didn't see the Colin Farrell version. They did like a reboot in 2016. It's terrible. It's awful. It's nothing. It's not on the same level of this one at all. But anyway, that's Total Recall. We're talking about Jeepers Creepers Reborn. So they go into this house, and I guess so. It's the voodoo lady and like two other people from the carnival that are the cult
There's
members.
like one of those open air preacher guys who's telling them all that they're doomed and going to hell. And now he's part of the occult. And there's the horror fest MC lady. So it's like people from different, so clearly, it's a thing that's going on in this town. They're from different worlds, but they come together to worship the creeper.
Right, as one does, you know.
And I don't know if it's supposed to be like a big reveal. I don't know. It's not. So you're
Yeah.
like, okay, that tracks.
Well, so they get them in this house and they basically lock them in so they can't get out, I guess, as basically food for the creeper,
Yeah.
essentially. And so he has the baby, which we don't know what the baby's for, but the baby's there, of course, because Lane.
And
Lane
he
is
has
there.
scooped her. The creeper
Right.
has scooped her up. He's got
Right.
her.
And
And then
he's
they're
so well, so then so I guess we get kind of an idea of what maybe he has in mind, because he starts to like cut open her abdomen a little bit. Like he's got a knife and he's sort of like stabbing her a little, but then he hears a
well,
noise
and it
and
made
goes away to
me wonder,
investigate.
like, they didn't do this too much in the movie. Remember, like in the first movies, the creeper's thing is that like he's got to smell your fear to see if you have
Yes.
something he wants.
Yeah.
And so, like, part of me was like, is this kind of what he's doing? Like, is he trying to scare her to like smell her baby to see if he wants it? But
Yeah.
like, because I don't know. I don't know.
So this is a little bit of a nitpick, probably a big nitpick. I don't know. Well, I'll let you judge how big of a nitpick this is. Maybe I'm being a stickler here. Use the stickler term. So anyway, I'm thinking back to the other Jeeper Creepers movies, and I feel like the
Mhm.
creeper in this one looks exactly like the one in those movies. Am I wrong about that or not? Because
No, he does.
because if
Yeah.
this is like a meta thing, and those were fictional versions of the creeper, you would think this creeper would look a little bit different because it's not supposed to be the same thing, and that was how Hollywood had interpreted it. Or am I being completely crazy and nitpicking this,
I don't think you're
Kim?
being crazy and nitpicky, but I do feel like you should let it go. Like
Okay,
I mean,
this is me
yes,
letting it go, Kim. I'm letting it
the
go.
the rational part of the conversation would be like, yeah, of course it would look different and la la la. But well, okay, and that gets me into a whole Scream thing where like they went and made movies of all these murders and they knew exactly what it looked like and all the shots and everything. You're like,
That's
I don't
true.
think they did. So that's where I'm like, I don't need that to be resolved. That's fine with me.
That's okay. Yeah. So anyway, that was just one of those things that, and this is completely stupid. In the back of my brain, I was like, why does he look just like the one in the other movies? But anyway, yeah, I'm letting it go. I'm letting that go. We're moving on.
Okay.
So eventually, one by one, each of the people in the crazy plantation house near the cemetery is killed one way or another.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of gore for sure, but I don't remember it being anything like super noteworthy.
No, and when it is, it's just there to be there. It's like there's like the bear claw that gets the guy's leg,
Right.
and there's some head bashing and things like that. But
Normal horror fare.
yeah.
Lucy wants to go out as I
No.
predicted. So give me one moment to let her out. I'm sure she'll want to come back in as soon as I
Yeah.
sit back down because that's
Tell
what
her.
dogs do sometimes. Okay.
Mhm.
So they're getting picked off one by one, but eventually this all sort of gets funneled into Lane. Is it Lane? No, it's there's three people left. It's Lane and Chase
Yeah.
and the redneck guy.
Yes, the redneck guy who has actually come out to kind of help them.
Right. And
Yeah.
and again, I'm kind of skipping over this, but there is sort of the normal horror movie trauma, stress moment of we're all going to turn on one another, kind of
Yeah.
situation where a gun is pulled and everybody has to kind of talk each other
Yes.
down sort of situation. But eventually it's just those three left, and they manage to lure the creeper to the front of the house because he's after Lane and the baby,
Yes.
while the two guys are getting on the steeple or the roof or whatever of this house because there's like a weather vane up there that they're trying to dislodge, and they end up throwing it down and basically impaling the creeper through the head, essentially.
Yes. Yep.
And
I
and
thought
that's
that was
that's
it.
kind of it, right? Like that's kind of it. And I don't. I'm trying to remember. Did the crows eat him or something? Like some birds land on him?
That's like the imagery that I'm like, was it necessary? There's this imagery of crows, not very good CGI imagery
Right.
either. And there's like a white crow and then the black crows, and then yeah, the crows come and swarm him and then fly away. And so it's like, I don't think they ate him. I think it was more of like a metaphor of that he become, I don't know, but
But and
he's no
so
more.
But when Lane, so the police show up, as they always do in every horror movie at the very end after everything has
I
already
was
been
like,
resolved.
okay, can we go back to that moment? There's a phone in the house that actually connects to 911.
What?
Like
Maybe I might have dozed during this part. When did that
they
happen?
called 911 from a phone in the house. Like I'm
Okay,
like, oh my God, it's one of the occult people. The occult people
right.
are pretending because there's no way they would lock a bunch of people in a house with a phone that dials out to 911. They
maybe
call
the
911.
maybe the creeper prepaid his phone bill for 23 years and was just just in case he needed to
Didn't
make a
think about
call.
it. The occult people were like, they won't ever find. They don't know how to use that phone. It has a rotary. They won't
Yeah,
figure it out. And so they do. And then the creeper pulls the wire, so the phone goes away. But then, so like they literally called 911, and 911 was like, what's going on?
yeah.
And then
So
bye.
so the police get there, they just sort of assess the carnage of the situation, and they put Lane in the patrol car, but as she's looking out the window, her eyes turn black or something, like
Yes.
like, is she possessed? Like I
Is
don't
the
know.
baby? Who knows?
I don't know. And so that happens, and then the crows fly off of the corpse, or the corpse is shown in another shot not long after that, and it's the creeper waking back up and being menacing
Yeah.
or trying to be menacing or something. So okay, let's try to point out some good things here. Were there any good things for you here,
There,
Kim?
there were some good
Okay,
things. I thought the actor who played Chase,
okay,
I really liked him. And I looked him up and he's not been in a lot of things, but I actually very much enjoyed watching him. I thought he did a really good job. He was charismatic. Like, as far as, when you have a script like this, and there's only so much you can do. I personally believe a good actor can take a bad script and make it better.
yes,
If you have a bad script, not even like if a bad actor can't take a good script, they can make it worse, if that
Right.
makes sense. He took a bad script, and I think he did a very good job with it. And so I
Okay.
was very impressed with that. And Lane, I will like, I have my pet peeves in movies are like coffee cups. When you get a coffee cup handed to you in a movie and you set it down like willy-nilly, and I clearly know there's no coffee in that cup, it is my biggest pet peeve in the world.
Okay.
And when you are injured and then suddenly that injury is gone, like bear claw leg guy,
Yeah.
he gets his leg trapped in a bear claw, they bandage it up. He ends up walking up the stairs later. Like,
Right.
no, dude, you're
So
not walking up the stairs. But Lane, when she gets stabbed in the abdomen, she did a really nice job of selling that injury for the rest of the movie. And I
yeah.
was very impressed by that. Like, every time she moved, she made a noise like she was hurt. And I was like, good for you. You did get stabbed.
Okay.
Yes.
So some good acting in the movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As far as like being a horror movie goes, I mean, anything here that you were like, you know what, like, okay, like I'm buying that, or I'm okay with this,
I
or
didn't hate the idea of making it meta, like this idea that it's a legend and they've tried to make movies about it. But I guess, and I don't even hate the horror fest thing because that's real. Like people can get, I mean,
yeah,
we know people get very into horror. And so like that's a thing that can happen. But then how it was all executed was not great. Like we didn't need a cult. We didn't need crows. What are we
yeah.
doing?
I think okay. So, and was there anything else for you that you just thought, you were like, okay, like I'm okay with this. Just any other good element about it? As you sip your coffee or tea or whatever it may
I
be.
liked that she was really good at throwing the creepers ninja star thingies.
Yeah, that
Like
was cool.
I thought they gave her some strengths and skills that obviously came back to benefit them later. You know, she wasn't just like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing." So, I felt like there were some layers to the characters that I thought were nice.
So for me, I will say that I think that once the movie transitioned to the house, like the plantation house situation, it got a little bit better to me at that
Yeah,
point.
the pace
Like
picked up a
it,
lot.
it felt like it kind of congealed just a little bit more plot wise and just action wise. So yeah, the pace picked
We have
up.
an actual conflict, an obstacle that we need to overcome
Right.
now. Let's do
So,
that.
but I gotta say, beyond that, there's not really a whole lot that I liked here. So we'll talk about the negatives. I mean, we've kind of highlighted those as we go, or as we went through this, I think. So for me, the CGI all around was not great, which, again, it's low budget. So I'm not overly concerned with that. But I'm like,
Yeah.
if try to use practical effects if you can, right? And I guess the budget may prohibit that a little bit too, but it just didn't look good as a movie overall. And even at the beginning, the whole meta part, there's clearly a green screen when Dee Wallace and
Yes.
husband were driving. Like it just didn't look convincing. It looked kind of rough around the edges. Um, the plot itself, I thought, was pretty unoriginal. It wasn't scary ever. Like, I mean, was there any
No,
point in this movie where you were scared? Like, you
no,
know, yeah.
not at all. No.
And I mean, not that horror movies have to be scary, but I feel like a good horror movie has got some degree of being unsettling, like
Yes.
with it. So, like,
Yeah.
and I was just telling you, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I just watched both X and Pearl. Those have some legitimately unsettling moments in them. Like, really,
Yes.
and the acting in those movies are amazing. Mia Goth is like on another level with the acting in that. So, those are both, and I'm going to let you borrow those. Those are both really good movies. But so, comparatively speaking, and it may be an unfair comparison, like there was just nothing here that was, on par with that. But then again, I think about the original Halloween, which was super low budget, and that was super unsettling also.
Yeah. Oh, that's why. Like they're not synonymous. You can absolutely be a low budget film and be unsettling and horrific and everything. It's when you take the limited budget that you have and try to spend it on CGI crows that you don't need.
Then it's
Like,
a problem. Yeah.
yes, then
Like,
then it's a problem.
those
Yes.
decisions are for the birds, right, Ken?
Oh my god.
I got my puns are really weak tonight. I got nothing.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was. So let me think what else I hated about this movie. Pretty much everything generally. Like, like, and again, I think, I will say, I watched this in kind of like the early afternoon. So, I was a little bit kind of dozy, a little bit tired just after having done some work in the morning, that kind of thing. But like, any movie, even again, like I said at the beginning of this review, any movie that's got a low budget and is like a sci-fi channel level type of thing, as long as it's moderately entertaining, then I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? Like, I'm okay. Like Sharknado, like completely
Yeah.
stupid, doesn't look great, but I was highly entertained by it, so I'm on board
Yes.
with that. Like, there was
Yes.
just nothing here that kept me interested, like just
No,
point
yes,
blank.
I agree with that. And I guess my issue is like, and I maybe someday I'll write a paper about all the movies that do this. The pregnant girl and the guy who's gonna propose. To me, that is like the most tired trope when
Cliche
trying
to the ninth
to
degree.
like set
Nth
up
degree.
oh, like that's how they want you to get invested. Oh, if she's pregnant and he wants to marry her, they're gonna care. And I'm like, that's not the only thing we care about. You could do some other things here with these characters, but that's the quick and easy way to try to get people to care about your characters.
It just makes you wonder, like, were there other proposed screenplays for a fourth Jeepers Creepers movie that got thrown out? Like, how did this become the one that got greenlit? Like, you just wonder what. I
And
mean, maybe it was the
when I
meta
was
thing. Like,
reading
I don't know.
the trivia, I think based on the trivia, I think there was a screenplay or an idea for a Jeepers Creepers 4 that did sort of get pushed to the side because this one, so Victor Salva, I'm not sure how to say his name, who wrote and directed the first one, and I
Hmm.
don't know what his involvement was on the other ones, but he like shunned this movie. He wanted nothing to do with it. So they in the trivia it says, the truck is supposed to have like that honking horn that like
Right.
scares people. You don't hear it in this movie because the guy who invented that sound, the sound designer, is friends with Victor Salva, and Victor was like, "Don't let him use it." And
Yeah.
so they couldn't so he was so adamantly opposed to this movie that he wouldn't even let them use the sound of a honking horn, which I'm
I
not surprised by any of that,
Me
but
either. Me either. Well, so before we conclude, I did want to just touch on a couple of things. So the thing that got me interested in seeing this, which is completely stupid, was the Rotten Tomato score because you don't often see that a movie is at 0%. Like that's a pretty big rarity. So like I'm looking at it now, and that's based on 15 reviews. And I will say that I don't watch movies based on review scores, but that's a pretty rare thing to see. And it's got an 8% audience score with more than 500 ratings. And so all that means is that 8% of the audience preferred it in some way, shape, or form, whereas the
yeah.
other 92% did not. And then when you look on IMDb, I'm scrolling up here, it's got a 2.5 out of 10, which is a really low IMDb score. I don't think it actually has enough votes to make the bottom 250 because I don't know if you follow IMDb closely, Kim. I'm sure you do
No.
because we're
Well, not in this bottom 250 thing you're talking
yeah,
about.
I'm actually going to pull up the bottom 250 because I want to see like what the number one worst movie, at least on that rating of all time is. But all that to
Yeah.
say, I wanted to see if it was really that bad. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm looking at IMDb now. The number one movie on the IMDb bottom 250 is Daniel the Wizard, which came out in 2004. It's got a 1.2 out of 10. It says the plot is evil assassins want to kill Daniel Kublock, the third runner up for the German Idols. So anyway, that's an example of the number one. Let me see if there's a movie that we know of that's on here. Because I'm sure there is at some point. I'm just going through it really quickly. Yeah, okay. I'll come back to this later. Disaster movie. Have you seen that one? That's
I
pretty
did
bad.
not see Disaster Movie.
The Hottie and the Naughty. That's on here also. Let's see what else is on here just really quickly. Anything that stands out. House of the Dead. That is actually a terrible movie. Have you seen House of the Dead?
I don't think I've seen House of the Dead, no.
That director, gosh, I can't remember his name. There was a time in college that came out in 2003 where I made it a mission to watch a lot of his movies, but U Bolt, because they were always rated so low. And like he's got like 3 or 4 movies in the bottom top 250. But anyway, somehow he kept getting jobs making movies. But anyway, I wanted to see if it was really that bad, and I'll be darned if it didn't live up to the hype,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Like
Yeah. No.
it's just I couldn't recommend this to anybody. I mean, I don't, even if you're like a fan of low budget horror movies, like it's just there's not really any kind of entertainment value at like a base
No.
level for
No,
me. So
there's
that's
not.
kind of
There's
the
not
problem.
even one moment where I'm like, "Oh, watch it for this moment." Like there's just not, which is unfortunate because I do think the premise, like Jeepers, the first Jeepers Creepers is amazing.
Yeah, I
And I
love the
really
first
like
Jeepers
the
Creepers. It's
second one
awesome.
too. So I do think it's got kind of a cool premise, but when you establish in the lore that this is a creature that only appears every 23 years, you've kind of limited yourself on what you're going to be able to sort of do with that. So I get why they had to go in the direction they went in, but it doesn't mean they should have.
Are you? This is kind of connected to this, but are you a fan of the Matrix movies?
I've seen the first one, and that's it.
Did you
Maybe
like
that
it?
I do. Yes, I do like it a
Okay.
lot. Yes.
So Matrix Resurrections, which came out last year, maybe it was last
Okay.
year, which was like a big gap between like the third
Yeah.
movie. And so it also has this meta approach to it. And I think I've actually
Oh,
got some lingering animosity about that because the first
yeah.
Matrix is one of my favorite movies of all time, like top 5 easily.
Yeah.
And I was so mad and disappointed after watching Matrix Resurrections that like I think the meta thing to me is like unless it's just done perfectly or in a really like unique way, it just doesn't always work. And like it didn't work
Right.
here for me. So I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just part of it. But
That would be interesting to see how they do that. Yeah. Because the Matrix is a great movie, but yeah. It's hard. That's why don't make a movie, okay, people? You
right,
don't have
just be
to.
done. Just be
Just
done.
yes.
And
Be done.
I'm really, I tend to be an optimistic person. Would you say that, Kim? Don't you think I'm pretty
Yeah.
optimistic generally?
Yes.
So like there's a
Yes.
new Indiana Jones movie coming out, and
Yes,
so
I'll
I'm like, I'm
share.
trying to be optimistic about this that like, okay, it's been a minute since they've made a new one of these. And it's like the original is my favorite movie of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, I think it's the perfect movie in a lot of ways. So I'm just hoping that they do it justice. I'm trying to go into it with some kind of optimistic mindset. And I tried to go into this, just sort of looking at it like maybe there will be something cool here as far as just horror movie
Yeah.
making is concerned. And I just couldn't pick out like one thing that stood out for me.
No.
So I don't know.
Yep.
So what are we looking at next? We're doing a Valentine's Day movie, right? Weren't we going to do that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want to do Valentine.
Okay,
That's the
and
name
that's
of the
the
movie. Or
2001, 2004. What year was it?
I
Let's
don't know
see.
what year,
I'll
but
look
it
it
has
up.
David Boreanaz from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and
Okay,
that's all I need to know. And then
2001 is when it came out. Okay.
the other one was My Bloody Valentine,
Okay.
which I am familiar with the reboot that they did that has Jensen Ackles from Supernatural. Again, the only reason that I need to be watching the movie. So those would be the two that I would be about reviewing.
I have not seen either of those films, which is
Valentine is very good. My Bloody
okay.
Valentine has Jensen Ackles. And
Okay. So which should
yes.
we watch? Should we do both, or should we just watch one of them?
I mean, I would probably watch both because why not?
Okay.
So
Well, then why don't let's plan on doing, if we can, like a Valentine's Day double feature type of review.
oh,
What do you think
okay.
about that? Would that
Yeah.
be cool? And
Yeah.
we'll try to keep it within like, I don't know, a 40-minute window, something like that. I think we can do that. Even though
That
shockingly, we had about 40 minutes worth of stuff to say about Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Oh my god, we're like the same length as the movie. We could have just been the movie. We could
I
have
know
just
we could
been
have written a better
Jeepers
movie. I
Reborn.
think. I think we
That
definitely
would
could have
be
done
kind
that.
of a cool premise. They're doing a movie review and they're talking about the Jeepers Creepers movies, and then the creeper appears. He's right behind you.
Right. You start hearing
So
the record, the song, or
yeah,
whatever. Like, I
right.
don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. Mhm.
Cool. Okay. Well, Kim, as always, it's been great. We'll come back together with our double feature and we'll have that up. I guess when I should know this. When's Valentine's Day? February
Like
14th.
Tuesday. It's on
Is
Tuesday.
it
It's
it's
very
the 14th?
soon.
Right. And
Yes.
actually, I do remember it because of what we were talking about the other day. Totally different thing with a student, like a whole thing. But anyway,
Oh,
yeah, that's
yes.
why I
Yes.
remember it. That's how I remember it now.
You're really gonna make them turn in homework on Valentine's Day?
What can I say? What can I say?
You're a
I'm a mean
monster.
teacher. I am a monster. Yeah, that's pretty horrific. I should write a horror movie about that. Anyway, we'll be back within the next weekish, I guess, maybe like a day or two after Valentine's Day, even or right up on Valentine's Day. We'll see with a double feature, and it'll be a lot of fun. So now I got to find those movies and watch them. Do you have either of those on
I
DVD?
have My
Or,
Bloody Valentine.
okay, I'll have to look and see. Maybe it's on Netflix or something. But anyway, thanks for watching. We'll be back soon.